Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to AFK Chat. I know what I'm doing today. Hello, welcome. This is AFK Chat for Tuesday, July 20th, 2021. I am using a temporary mic and camera setup, so for those of you about to be like, audio sucks, your video looks weird, I know. We were testing a shotgun mic in this setup. This is the DDS Mic 2S, a wonderful mic, but as I have covered a multitude of times on the channel here, a shotgun mic, when you're talking directly into two monitors, turns into a reflection box, and I'm not happy with it. I'm still trying to chase the off-camera microphone goal, but I think I'm just pulling the RE20 or the SM7B back here and calling it a day. For those of you watching on YouTube, this is a primarily Amazon-focused show that we do weekly here on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. Amazon link is in the video description. I will also pop it in chat. Do me a huge favor and go follow over there. Helps out the show a ton. We're also on the Amazon homepage now. So hello, everyone watching on Amazon. This is pretty awesome. This is the first day or stream that we are doing this. So this, or specifically on the homepage, which is pretty sick. I am super stoked for this. Those of you new to the show, AFK Chat is my kind of more casual product showcase show that we do here on YouTube and Amazon. We got a woot in the Amazon chat, where we focus on more of the kind of little things that I don't get to cover in videos a lot and the things like that. I actually realized I should probably add, I am using a different camera as well for today's stream. It was lent to me by a wonderful viewer named Chandler. He actually lent me two of them as soon as I add them to the stream here. We are testing out, because I covered it last year and the stuff for it wasn't ready yet. We are actually testing out the ephemeral Sony ZV-1, which is a small, compact point-and-shoot camera that does 4K video, 1080p 60 video, but they have unlocked USB streaming over it. So you can get a 720p 30 feed over USB. I currently have it connected over micro HDMI to a capture card, specifically the CamLink Pro that we have linked below, so that we can talk about the capture card kind of thing that we are covering. But this is an incredible, incredible camera to use as a webcam alternative. It's obviously a fraction of the size of the sensor from my full-frame A7C I usually use, because this is like a 1-inch sensor or something like that. But the autofocus capabilities to quickly do like product showcase stuff is absolutely insane, and I don't even have this tuned properly, and you can still get like S-Log and things like that coming out of it. So unfortunately, of course, these are somebody else's, so I will have to give them back. But I am a huge fan of these so far. I reviewed them last year, but the webcam app wasn't available, so I'm currently borrowing them to make a video on the updated webcam app that unlocks HD video, whereas most of the Sony cameras only give you like 576p, and it's super inconsistent. The update for the ZV-1 specifically is a little better. It's still not great. So that is the camera we are using for this stream, in case you're confused why things look a little different than usual. All right, everything seems to be fine on the stream side. Let me know how the audio balance is as we move along here. Today we are talking about budget capture cards. Now, specifically, I will be focusing on the one I just teased, which is this little pink USB-C to HDMI, or HDMI to USB-C, rather, capture card, which is currently available for $9.99. I actually paid for mine for $6, but this is one of those can't links that the listing kind of disappears and goes away over time. But I actually got to buy this for $6, but it's currently available for $10. If I switch on over here, this is the listing for it. But you may also see this same capture card in other listings based on the ones that I have shown before. So they might look like this with the little black, kind of looks like a flash drive. And then they have thicker ones. This is the style that, this is actually the specific one I covered before in a video on my channel. In fact, if I pull that up here, it's one of my top videos from last year. And that's kind of what started this whole venture, is I specifically made a video either late 2019 or early 2020, capture card, asking, basically saying that as great as the capture card market has become, we still need a capture card that is under $100 that can easily get people up and running for their camera. And then lo and behold, not long later, we started seeing capture cards appear on the market that were super cheap and allowed people to connect their camera and stream video. Now, some of them were great, some of them were bad, some of them have heat sinks and don't have heat sinks. So you're going to be hit or miss when you're buying things this cheap. But I made a whole video about that last summer, a little more than a year ago, and that kind of started this whole adventure and rabbit hole here. And that is effectively the kinds of capture cards that we are looking at here today. Is these same idea, but this new one is somehow much cheaper than the ones that we have covered in the past, because these were usually $15 to $20 unless you got them off AliExpress, whereas the pink USB-C ones that I've covered, or that I'm holding here, tends to be under $10 every time I see it, which is pretty wild if you ask me. So that is what we are looking for and looking at, and we're going to talk about how these differ from high quality capture cards. Someone in Amazon chat saying they already bought 4 of them. Are these better in quality than the HD60, not the S or S Plus? We got a question from CP Geek. Why don't makers of high-end DSLRs not integrate full USB UVC capture capabilities? So that is what we are actually seeing. I don't think I have a playlist of this yet. I meant to make a playlist of it, but I've made a few videos now on the various webcam utilities that Fuji, Canon, and Sony have released, and I believe GoPro has released one as well. The issue is that for most of them, the thing that they are doing is they are taking the photo tethering preview, where you would connect your camera to your laptop to see a bigger preview when you take pictures and control the picture taking settings. That is all that they have integrated into these cameras for decades, but it has existed, you just could never use it for video. So they released firmware updates and updated desktop applications that allow you to basically hijack that and turn it into a video feed. That's why they don't look great, however, because they are typically running off of that photo tethering preview, which, like I said, is usually 1024 by 576 at 30 FPS, streaming over USB 2.0, which is an inconsistent frame rate. It doesn't look great, yada yada. The ZV-1 was the first camera on the market that was marketed as being a camera that actually has webcam focused features kind of built into the design, that it was kind of made for it. Now, I think this was a little bit optimistic on Sony's part, in that they were like, oh, we can market this, we can make it a little bit better, but they didn't actually do anything. So it's still USB 2.0, which means you're limited to MJPEG in general, and you're still only getting 720p 30, and it's still not great. But I think we will hopefully see a shift towards companies introducing more capture capabilities into the camera. I don't know if they have the capabilities to make it just act as a UVC webcam, so to speak, because all of these things still require utilities that basically translate what the camera's outputting into a webcam video instead of just showing up as a webcam. But I do think we will start seeing a shift where maybe it becomes a priority for them to focus on, and that is what I am hoping here. I don't know that we will see it, but that is the idea, is that is what they will start working on. However, what I'm working on with these ZV-1s is also, because yeah, so the capture card you see in here is an entire ASIC, in some weird cases a FPGA chip, but a chip that often generates a fair bit of heat, which is why some of these kind of overheat and things like that. But it requires all of this extra computing, not to mention the HDMI output being split off and routed to this or something like that, because you still want to have clean HDMI out of the cameras. So you would have to integrate this on top of an HDMI splitter into the camera body, which is just extra chips, extra heat, extra processing power that camera manufacturers, at least thus far, don't seem worth it. So what I'm working on with the ZV-1 video is also comparing the USB output, which is a free upgrade. If you have one of these cameras, you get this webcam utility basically free as a way to use it. But if you're doing fairly consistent, teaching or Zoom calls or something where you're doing something for your job, it might be worth investing $9 into getting better footage. And so we're going to talk about kind of the pros and the cons of these capture cards. So most of the ones that you see in my Amazon list here of these same little black capture cards, or the gray or pink ones, this same little thumb drive looking one, they're all pretty much the same. They all contain the same, I believe it's the MS 2009 or 2019 chip. I don't remember the exact number, but they're all based off the same chipset that does kind of the same thing. I just realized this is way more cropped than my usual split view here. They all kind of do the same thing in terms of what they do. They take your HDMI video signal. Some of them can take 4K signals, but we're gonna talk about the best practices to get out of it, and it's not gonna be to run it at 4K. Some of them can take 4K signals and scale it down, but ultimately they're all gonna be limited to taking whatever signal that they will accept, which sometimes is 4K, sometimes it's 1080p, and translating that to 1080p 30 or 720p 60. MJPEG, which is motion JPEG, so basically every frame is a JPEG picture, out over USB to your computer to then decode and stream. This isn't a very high quality approach by any stretch. Even the ones that claim to be using USB 3, such as our little USB-C friend here, these are still USB 2.0. So even the ones that paint their plastic blue and claim to be USB 3, they're all running USB 2.0. They're all using MJPEG, which doesn't need USB 3.0. Your latency is going to depend on the card you get. Like the very first one of these that I ever tested, which was the Blue AVS one here. The one I got was a very low latency capture card and was super impressive. But then some of the others that I have tested have been fairly high latency. And a lot of people have some that have really high latency, which means that obviously it doesn't have a pass-through, so this doesn't affect what you're connecting to it. But what it means is that your audio sync in OBS or in your Zoom call or your Skype call or Discord call is going to be a lot harder to nail down. Now, generally, most people on a video call aren't going to notice that much, so that's fine. But if you're doing live streaming, you want to sync that up in OBS with the audio offset, and that is going to be easier to do the lower latency card you have. So, but especially if you get one like these are less than $10. So as an upgrade to pair with whatever mirrorless or DSLR you have, it's kind of a no-brainer to just grab one, even as a gamble, and connect to it. And so we're going to demo what the quality you get out of it is compared to what we're currently running with, which right here, this is the Camlink Pro from Elgato. So it's their, we're running at 4K 30 right now. This is the Camlink Pro. This is the first input. We do have my top camera as the second input. Not that I'm doing anything with it, but we have it here. This is a Panasonic G85. And so this is running at full, uncompressed HDMI 4K 30, and we're going to compare to this. So in terms of what these are actually doing, some of them can scale. And actually, I'm going to add one more to our list here on the Amazon page. It won't show up on the list I linked in YouTube, but you can head over to Amazon, check it out. If I can pull it up here. The Genki Shadowcast is a capture card that released as a way to play your games on your computer. And it turned out it was the exact same thing as all of these Cantlinks. And so it actually has worse latency than many of these cheap little capture cards that I have tested. And so it's the same idea where they took the same chipset, gave it a new shell, changed the inputs and outputs a little bit, but it's the same idea, and then they developed a little program for it. So for this, you need an HDMI cable appropriate for your camera. So for the Sony ZV-1 here, it's micro HDMI. For my Sony a7C and my Panasonic G85, it's micro HDMI. If you have something like a camcorder, those tend to be mini HDMI. And then if you have a higher end, more kind of like cinema camera, you have full size HDMI. So like the A7S III, I believe, has full size HDMI. So these are a pretty cool concept, and they just kind of showed up out of nowhere last year and made a huge splash because, like I said, I had made videos saying, hey, we've improved convenience, ease of use, all of that, but what we haven't improved is the price point. I want something less than $100 that I can recommend, and these showed up everywhere. The issue is that every time I link you one of these, they're going to disappear off Amazon within a couple months, and then I have to update links and blah, 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 so that gets annoying. But what really started it all was this one right here. If I can... Why did it switch windows on my phone? I really don't like juggling things on my phone sometimes. I know that makes me a boomer, but whatever. This one right here, this is the Magewell XI100D USB. Hello, Sony Focus. I was just bragging about you. There we go. Magewell XI100D USB HDMI. This thing was one of the first ever, at least mainstream accessible capture cards that took your HDMI feed and converted it to USB 3.0 and acted as a UVC card. This was one of the first UVC webcams, or UVC capture cards that acted as a webcam for your camera. The issue is it was expensive. I first reviewed this in 2014, I want to say. So 7 years ago now. And back in 2014, this thing was $300. Currently, the Gen 2 of it is still $300. And this is 1080p 60 only. It's not 4K or anything like that. So obviously, something like the Elgato Cam Link or the AverMedia Live Streamer. I'm not quite sure what they called theirs. AverMedia has a basically Cam Link as well that I reviewed a while back. Those are going to be better deals because they're less than $200 and in some cases less than $100. But this is the one that started it all. And a couple companies had cloned it and made it like silvery and took off the Magewell branding and made a similar capture card. But no one really took that seriously because generally speaking, as ironic as this whole stream is since I'm recommending some of these products, generally speaking, no, not the Live Gamer Mini. Definitely not that. It was the Extreme Cap UVC. Generally speaking, cloning products and reselling them for cheaper is considered a kind of shady bad practice. That's crappy. That's like re-uploading my videos with slightly different visuals or something. Like, that's not a great idea. But they were literally doing a direct clone. So you could see it was exactly the same thing. It was the same shell and all of that. Whereas these days, these just kind of showed up out of nowhere and are all clones of each other, but aren't knocking off any particular individual product. They're not using the same components or the same case or anything like that as a real product. And that's what makes it cool. We have a comment in the YouTube chat that says, but Cam Link doesn't capture console. False. In my very first review of the Elgato Cam Link back in 2017, I demoed it capturing a game console because every capture card that has the input that your console outputs can capture a game console. You just needed an HDMI splitter for it because playing off the preview is generally not ideal. But here we are back in 2017, me with no hair and no facial hair. And I'm like, okay, well, if you wanted to use it as a cheap gaming capture card, can you? And here you go. Works just fine. It can do any HDMI device that doesn't have HDCP running on it. The same thing for these capture cards. These also do not have HDMI output because it's just HDMI and USB. So if you need to capture a game console, you want an HDMI splitter to run it to your TV. Totally fine. Little baby Vox, yeah. So to get the best out of these super cheap budget capture cards, you need to do a few things. First and foremost, you want to keep your signal at 1080p. While some of them can pass through 4K 60 from your next generation game consoles and downscale it, the scaling quality on these devices is going to be pretty low. Welsh, I wasn't responding to you. I was responding to Finex. Yeah, literally the comment above. Yeah, that wasn't what you said. So these things do not have great quality scalers in there. Now, there are capture cards like the Magewell, which have very specific and high-end video conversion chips built in that will do frame rate conversion, scaling, all of that built in, and they do a high quality job at it, even if you don't get a ton of control over it. That video did not age well, unlike a Magewell capture card. That video aged perfectly well. Get out of here. But these cheaper capture cards have basically only one chip on board and not high quality components and won't do super well for scaling. So if you're sending a camera or gameplay feed or desktop feed even into this, I would only send 1080p. So in your camera menus, you can go, actually I can probably show you right here. If you go to your menu, hello camera, catch up with me please. If you go to your menus, pretty much every camera that can output HDMI will have an HDMI settings menu. I can pull it up here to find the right focus distance. There we go. HDMI settings. And then you have HDMI resolution. Currently I have it set to 4K or 1080p, so it can output 4K. You can go down and specifically lock it to 1080p. That way you are set. Because if you have it set to 4K, it will send 4K to the capture card, and the capture card will do the scaling down to 1080p, but it will be a very rough scale. You'll notice a lot of jagged edges, a lot of weird pixel artifacting because it's doing a kind of messy scale. So for these, I recommend setting your source to native 1080p. Now, if you're looking to get a high frame rate out of it, keep in mind, you're not going to get 1080p 60 out of any of these capture cards, be it the more expensive ones like the Atomos Connect or the cheaper ones like this, because they're all using the same chipset, and for whatever reason, they're just completely incapable of streaming at 60 FPS. My buddy Arsenic Dev has made videos, or not videos, but Twitter posts kind of explaining what's going on, but most of this stuff will not output 60 FPS over 1080p. It will do it over 720p, but 1080p, if you set it in OBS or whatever, it will set to 1080p 60, but then you'll be lucky to get 40 FPS out of it in my testing. And in fact, in my cheapest capture cards you can buy video, which if I pull that back up here, I kind of showcase, obviously we're not running at 60 FPS here, but when I tested it out, even for a 30 FPS capture at 1080p, it was still kind of rough. And that's not because it can't do 1080p 30 well, it's because it's trying to go above 1080p 60 and it's just stuttering a little too much. So you want 1080p. If you're trying to do high frame rate, then you need to do 720p 60 on your streaming side, which is totally fine for Twitch, YouTube, Zoom, Skype, whatever. 100% fine. Thank you for the super chat, Rain. Will it blend? It's metal, so probably not. And then 1080p 30 if you're going after resolution, which for cameras, I still to this day recommend most of you run your cameras at 30 FPS to get a higher resolution. You get higher quality punch-ins, you get more image resolved here, and you don't really need the smoothness for your camera footage anyway. So if you're using this to connect your camera as a webcam or whatever, 1080p 30 is completely fine. You can, however, run it at 720p 60 for gameplay or for desktop capture sources. Totally fine. The next thing to do is to choose your USB port. So you can actually run multiple of these off of one powered USB hub. And actually, I had bought a bunch to test this at one point, and then the listings all went offline for a little bit. And so I haven't actually got around to making that video because I was waiting on the listings to come back up. They have now, but they weren't at the time. But you can run multiple of these off of a powered USB hub. But once you start putting them on the same chipset on your motherboard's USB hubs, you're going to run into some power issues. So if you are doing multiple, I do actually recommend buying a powered hub, probably a USB 3 hub just to be safe. I realize they're USB 2, but if you're stacking USB 2 bandwidth, then you're going over a single USB 2 port's maximum bandwidth. So I recommend getting a powered USB 3.0 hub to connect multiple to, and then using a dedicated USB 3.0 or Thunderbolt even if you have that available to connect to, so that you have all the maximum throughput available and you don't connect other audio devices or other webcams to it. And then you connect it. So this one is USB Type-C, but again, it is only 2.0, so it doesn't really matter. Like if you get one of those USB-C cables that are just a charge cable or something like that, you can totally use it. Plug it in. Hopefully that worked. And then we're going to switch our HDMI view. So I'm going to switch to our top cam here. Unplug my HDMI cable from my normal capture card setup as we go through here and plug it into this one. And then you add it to your streaming software. So I am going to switch scenes, add video capture device, which actually I can probably pull up on screen here if you would like. So let me cancel that and I can just show you my desktop view. Desktop. Music's gonna stop for a second, but here we go. So here's the desktop view. We can go to studio mode, add video capture device. Can't link. Come down here. This one is going to show up as USB video. Sometimes they might show up as something else, but this one's going to show up as USB video. And then if we want to go to device settings, you can see here 1080p. It'll say 60 FPS, but it will not do 60 FPS. My camera's only running at 30 right now anyway, so we'll do 2997. And of course, you only get MJPEG. Color space 709, and everything else should be fine. Click OK. Whee, boop. Now, another thing to consider with these capture devices, actually, we will manage that here, is most of them will not add audio to OBS by default. So if you want audio from them, you have to come over here to use custom audio device. And then it's this one right here, USB digital audio, or it should be named similar to the device you connected, which in this case is USB digital audio. Click OK. It still didn't add audio device, which means this particular card may not be sending audio at all, which is kind of interesting. Actually, no, it's because of the scene that I'm on. If I switch scenes to that scene, boom. So now I've muted my main microphone and we're using the on-camera microphones. Another issue you will run into with these capture cards is, generally speaking, the audio they output is mono. It will phase your stereo audio source down to mono and then like phase it weirdly back to stereo, but actual stereo audio separation isn't really possible without some weird hacky workarounds that people have done, and it's a really weird audio format. So don't go into this expecting higher quality audio. Either route your audio separately or just use it for sources like your camera where you mainly just want video. We'll switch back to the other mic now. So now I can come in here and add this scene to my, or this source to my normal camera scene. Actually, I can just leave it on this one. So, yeah, this is what it looks like running through capture card instead of my 4K one. Mostly is going to look the same. It's going to look a little worse because it's running at 1080p instead of 4K, and it is MJPEG, which means it's a little more compressed instead of completely uncompressed video. So you're going to see a little bit more scaling artifacts and, you know, sharp details, and it's going to be a little higher latency, and there's going to be some compression blocking in certain areas, but overall it's going to be about the same. How many work with Android? Most of these cheapo capture cards should work with Android just fine. There's actually a couple videos out there about using your Android smartphone as a video monitor for your camera, basically, which is kind of cool. The issue is there aren't a whole lot of Android apps that actually let you use UVC capture cards to stream. I have run into this issue a lot. Streaming on Android is a complete Wild West at the moment, and using capture cards on Android is technically supported on an operating system level, but there isn't a whole lot of programs that will let you do the streaming on it. There's a couple applications. I think I demoed one in a recent video for the A10 Cam Live that was just called like USB video capture, and it was designed for the composite can't link capture cards, but generally speaking, they're not gonna work super well. Someone's asking, is there even a cheap 3.0 capture card? Yes, I have covered, well, I don't think I've actually covered the ones, well, there's a couple here. So I will post a playlist link in the YouTube chat to my budget capture card coverage. There are a few, but they're not great. However, there are a couple new ones that seem super promising that I'll be covering very soon. So get subscribed so you don't miss that. You just need to implement the UVC USB protocol yourself in your app if you're developing an app. Yes, but there's not a whole lot of not super shady applications that do it, or that do it well, or that do it with the other features that you would want for streaming. Definitely a loss in sharpness, but this would work for a face cam in your corner while you're streaming your games or something. 100%. Like 100%. Plus, if you're just teaching, or you're doing video conferencing, or you're doing board meetings or something, like you don't need 4K super high res camera. You just need this, and this will do it for you, which is absolutely awesome. But, you know, there are some caveats to it, like the audio. Like I said, there are a lot of people, I think, who went into this hoping to use a small microphone mounted on their camera or something, and wound up disappointed that the audio isn't great out of it, and that is unfortunate. You're going to get much better audio. Actually, the USB mode of the ZV-1 here actually transmits audio, and it's pretty high quality. In my video coming up next week, I demoed that with this aperture mic here. It actually sounds pretty good. It sounds better than the mic I was using for that video itself, which is amusing. But yeah, so that is this particular card and how you use it. Now, I had someone asking if you can use it with your phone, and yes, you can, and we're going to demo that real quick here. If I switch back to the top cam so we can switch our camera back to our normal camera. Always juggling things on the fly here on this stream. And then I believe in my drawer here, I have a USB Lightning to HDMI cable, I hope. I try to keep things where I know that they are, but then I have a lot of stuff I have to reference and things get lost very easily. Well, rip, where the heck is my Lightning adapter? Why can't Apple just switch to USB-C? Why does Apple have to be the odd child out? Yeah, I don't see it. Da-dum-dum-dum. Oh, wait. Aha! Found it. Alright. So I just need over here. HDMI cable. Alright. Making progress. Here we have basic HDMI 2.0 cable here. Whee! Yeah, capturing mobile does present an audio issue because you then have to monitor it through your streaming software, or you don't have audio because you can't do, you know, out to capture and to your your headphones at the same time. Thank you for the follows. Those of you following on Amazon, if you haven't already, go hit that up. All right. We are connected through Lightning to HDMI to this USB-C one. Now, I haven't actually tested this, so we're testing this for the first time here. I'm going to set the capture card. I know it's a black screen. Everyone calls that out when I point it out myself. Okay. I'm setting the capture card to device defaults. And assuming this works, you should see a signal in a second. iPhone HDMI out is a little weird. I'm going to switch to studio mode so you all can see me at least. There we go. Because like at this exact moment, my phone doesn't even detect that I connected it to a USB or to an HDMI device, which is obviously dumb. I'm going to launch a game and see if that improves here. Yeah, I'm not getting any signal for some reason. Thanks, Apple. All right, we're going to do my iPad instead. iPhone HDMI out is really messed up in general, just to be clear. That's not necessarily this capture card's fault, but depending on the format that your capture card outputs, you may end up with a format that your capture card doesn't support, because these capture cards, some of them can be kind of flexible in terms of the formats that they support, but some of them can be, you know, very rigid, and that's kind of luck of the draw. Like, a lot of people want recommendations, and I literally cannot recommend consistently a single capture device that will perform the same way from 1 minute to the next, just inherently due to the way that they work. All right, so I'm going to set up my iPad Pro here because it has USB-C video out. That's a little bit more reliable, even if the connector isn't. All right, we have Procreate with me making this app here, so connecting my USB-C hub to the output and to the capture card. Whee! There we go, that worked. Although it's going to keep disconnecting randomly because USB-C video output is not super reliable. Yeah, it's just going to keep disconnecting because these ports are loose as hell and they never work right on any iPad or tablet or phone that I have used. I'm going to give you a taste of what you see, but it's just going to keep cutting in and out. But assuming you get like a dock that actually keeps your connection stable, it works fine. I've always had this issue with USB-C HDMI out dongles that the cable just doesn't stay secure enough for it to work consistently. But the capture card itself is capable of it. So if you have one of those gaming phones that can do it or what have you, it's totally fine. I hate these USB-C video adapters. They just never work right. Why isn't there a common device that can do the job of Camlink or HD60 within whatever the user wants to? I have no idea what you're asking, Phoenix. Love your setup. Thank you, Soldier. So the truth is that no matter which one of these devices I recommend to you, it doesn't matter if it costs $50 or $40. If they are similar in design or look in terms of what they can do, they are all going to perform the same. So you've got, doesn't matter what these no-name brands are, doesn't matter how much you spend on these little specific ones that look the same, these will all do the same until you get to the $75-ish price point with like the Elgato Camlink and some of the actual USB 3.0 options, that the feature set starts to change. Now, you get ones like this, the Digit Now here, which actually has HDMI pass-through, so this is a boon if you're willing to pay more for it, because you have HDMI input and output, which means that you will be able to pass through your video signal for gaming. So if you want to connect your game console to your TV and still capture it, good to go. But the overall quality, performance, and specs are all basically going to be the same. It's going to be MJPEG, 1080p 30, 720p 60, and that's it. Now this one is attempting to be a little misleading here. They include a USB, you would think USB 3.0 extension. It's probably still 2.0, but it has the blue connector. But the card itself is still USB 2.0. It says 3.0. It's not. It's not. I promise you right now. It says USB 3.0. I can promise you 100% that it will only do 1080p 30. You will be able to set it to 1080p 60, but it will only do 1080p 30, 720p 60. And even though some of these claim to be USB 3.0, they are still only outputting MJPEG, and you can use a program called USB Tree View to see that they are still only capturing or using USB 2.0 bandwidth. And so a lot of these are a little bit misleading. Now, that being said, the whole point of this is to show you that, especially if you're just doing a webcam or a camera feed and you're just doing meetings or teaching or whatever, you don't need a fancy capture card, period. You just don't. Most of these will work perfectly fine. But yeah, Cujo says, I actually connected a Chromecast to a $13 Cant link and was able to stream mobile games that way, but it wasn't very good quality over Wi-Fi. Yeah, Chromecast video is really not great quality. Hey, Epos, is the 60 FPS firmware for the Cant link updated somewhere or a tutorial anywhere? So that was a misspeak on my part. There are some of the actual pseudo USB 3.0 models that are the more expensive ones that you can actually mod the firmware to do 1080p 60. But all of these designs that I have been showing you here, the actual Cant links, they cannot do 1080p 60 no matter what. Like, they are literally incapable of it, unfortunately. Is it true that those capture cards cannot capture two-channel audio? So yeah, I covered that a minute ago. These capture cards will phase stereo audio down to mono and then phase it back out to stereo, and you get some weird stuff going on. Some of them can be modded with, on Linux, you can use the Pulse or Jack audio, I forget which one, to kind of convert it back to stereo audio, but it's still not perfect. But generally speaking, you're getting stereo down mixed to mono audio out of these, which is fine for a camera feed because you're, in 99% of cases, your microphone is mono instead of stereo. But if you're wanting gameplay audio, you will probably need to use an HDMI extractor, an audio extractor, or something to get the audio out another way. When the imposter is sus. Well, yeah, that's... I've had... I wanted to make a follow-up here. I was going to make a whole video about this $9 capture card, or $6 at the time, but the listing of the one I specifically bought then went offline, as is often the case. So if you're watching this in like 6 months, most of the links in the description are probably gone, because that's how it works. I wanted to make this stream, and I wanted to make a follow-up video specifically to talk about that these are still available and still completely viable, and I think your average person looking to buy capture cards just needs these, and this kind of helps the kind of capture card shortage we experienced last year with everyone working from home and needing capture cards. But they do have their limitations, and those limitations are always going to be there. And I get no end of requests to check out, you know, the different brands. So like, I'll get comments being like, well, check out IPX Ozos, or check out Avarians, or Blue AVS, or whatever. And ultimately, if they look anything like these, they are the same product. Now, I do have a couple from some other places that will be able to do higher quality actual USB 3, but you're still paying more akin to $40 or $50 instead of $6 or $8 or $15. And I will have a couple of reviews of those coming soon, but it doesn't matter what brand name. Most of these brand names are made up. They're just factories in China that spit out a lot of these. But no matter which one of these brand name things you're doing, you're getting effectively the same thing. Now, you have no way of determining before you buy it if it comes with a heat sink, so it doesn't overheat itself and die. You're kind of making a gamble there, but some of them do. So in fact, we are going to open up this one on stream. I'm going to go grab a screwdriver real quick. I will switch you all to I guess the bird's eye view of my messy setup here. I don't have music added to this. That's disappointing. Add scene. Bring back the music. Music. Bam. All right, I will be right back in just a second as I grab a screwdriver. I can't seem to find where my other cant links went at the moment that I would normally show in a video, but I will show you what it looks like in my Genki Shadowcast video. So if I pull that up here. Oh, actually, the Teardown was in the Nebula copy, which I can show you as well. EposVox Genki. There it is.
Fast Genki Shadow.
Consider this your free teaser for Nebula. Hang on one second. I know it's not on the scene. I'm trying to get to the right spot. Boop. So in the Nebula extended cut of my Shadowcast video, I talked about the internals and the things to consider and looked at the specs. And the Shadowcast itself actually did not come with a heatsink. So that's worth keeping in mind. But then you compare that to the actual cant link. There it is. So this is what most of the capture cards you get will look like is up on top. Is this one right here. Now, whether or not you get a heatsink or not is kind of a gamble. And so that's kind of what we're going to look at here. I know you can't see a ton, but we're going to crack open this USB-C one. I was specifically waiting for me to actually show it in video before I take it apart, just in case you kill anything. But someone in the Amazon chat is saying they got the EVGA XR1 for 99 bucks and it works great. Yes, it was actually on a Prime Day sale for like 80 bucks, and that was one of the best value capture cards you can get because it's a wonderful capture card. It just was launched with, I think, a marketing department that was very confused about what the capture card could actually do. But once they figured that out, things were peachy. I guess we're unscrewing both sides. So a lot of them, not all of them, you saw some of the skinnier ones did not have screws in the Amazon image, but a lot of the thicker ones of these will just have 4 little screws on the case here that you take off. Put these like QC stickers over them, but 4 little screws you can take off to get everything taken apart here. Fairly simple chassis design. Then it should just push out one of the sides. There we go. We got the ends taken off, and then it's just like a little slidey system. Kind of cleverly designed here. All right, so this one does not have a heatsink either. You can see, and actually I can switch back to this view. Get like a macro shot. Block my face. There we go. So this is what it looks like. Ideally, these smaller ones will not have a heatsink, but ideally, you want a heatsink on there. Now you can buy a super cheap, you can get heatsinks for like 10 cents. So you can buy a super cheap heatsink and use thermal glue or whatever and stick it on there. And you will extend the lifespan of this a ton. Not everybody has issues with them, but some people have had issues where they stream for a long period of time and this thing gets really, really hot and then just dies. If you want to avoid that, again, potentially buying a heatsink for the main chip on the front here would certainly be a way to go. And then you can just keep it out of the case if you'd like. Just don't touch it, I guess. Or keep it, you can buy like a little USB fan to keep on it, or make sure it's not sitting on carpet or anything like that so that it's not, you know, just sitting there insulating itself. But yeah, that is the way to go. It doesn't need a ton of cooling by any stretch. You don't need a super high-end fan or cooler or anything like that. It just needs a little bit of heat dissipation and it's totally fine. Yeah, there we go. Someone got the actual chipset number. It is the Macro Silicon 2109. So not 2019, 2109. That is the chipset that all of these uses. Wow, that was not English. All of these capture cards use. The MS2109 is the chipset that all of these cheap ones use and is effectively the same across all of them. Huge gamble. I killed a USB port with one of these. That should not be possible. So I've never heard of anyone talking about that. Might have had bad luck. Those with heatsink are heavier, use a scale to measure. Yeah, but if you only have one, you don't know what you're measuring against. So that's not necessarily useful. Yeah, I mean, I used this one for a few hours testing some gameplay footage, which I guess I could pull up, although on Amazon you're not going to see much quality difference. But I did I was using, like I was treating this as a formal review, so I captured some samples. And so I was getting gameplay captures of it and stuff, and it was fine. Like, mine got warm, but it didn't get as hot as the others by any stretch. But
our UAV is online.
like, it looks fine, and it held up fine for heat purposes as well. Quality is fairly decent for an MJPEG card. In the pixel art games, you're not going to notice it as much unless you get a bunch of particles going on. Like, the MJPEG encoder handles the pixel art kind of game style pretty well. It's more modern 3D games with like lots of effects that you're going to notice the MJPEG blocking. I'll see if I can find like some easy examples here. Obviously, this is supposed to be 1080p 60, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can tell even at 30 FPS on YouTube, it doesn't look great. Actually, we can probably go where we just got shot there. Yeah, it's hard to see. But you can see, especially compared to a proper capture card, like you'll start to see it's pretty soft, and any areas of like smoke or explosion, you start to get a lot of particles and stuff, or a lot of pixelation and blocking. But not a big deal. What game is he playing before the pixelated stuff? That was Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered. I've heard of Camlink 4K's overheating before. Will I be fine if I just make sure mine gets super hot? Yeah, I've personally never heard of those overheating, and I used to use them for a very, very, very long time. Like, I would use them for hours and hours on end and never had any real issues. So I don't see any reason to believe that they would overheat personally. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I have never heard of that. Got the $10 warranty on the EVGA XR1 as well. Nice. So most of these, oh, so someone's asking about the one with the pass-through here. It's not, I haven't tested this particular one, but in the ones that I have tested, they will not pass through 1080p 120 hertz. And you don't want to do that anyway, because the way that they are sampling down to 60 FPS are really, like, you're going to get tearing all over the place. You're not getting actual, 120 hertz capture. So I would not recommend it. What about the EasyCap 320? I don't see that anywhere myself. Keep in mind, we can only look at Amazon products on the show at the moment. I did want to look at, someone's asking, have you checked the input lag or latency? I do want to go ahead and mention, if you head on over, I will post a link in the description below here. Give me just a second. Let me find the right post. 1 sec. I have a post on my website I've been working on that has the latency of all of the capture cards I have tested so far. However, keep in mind with these cant links, there is no real way to, I have a chart on the website that is searchable and sortable, so you can see latency high to low or low to high, or search for a specific card. But keep in mind with all these different cant links, like, they're all going to have some degree of variable latency, and there's no way to really document all of them, because even if you buy two of the same, it's going to be different. How can I measure if the output output is reaching 60 FPS? The easiest way is to drag it onto a 60 FPS timeline in a video editor and just go frame by frame, because you'll see duplicate frames. The same thing if you pull up a video in YouTube, for example, and play it at half speed, you'll be able to quickly see if it's 30 FPS or 15 FPS. So those are the easiest ways to go. Thanks for yelling, Box fan. The pass-through ones that I have tested so far have been completely lag-free pass-through. Just, like, that's one of those things that you would expect these kinds of capture cards to get wrong, but the ones that I have tested with pass-through so far have been completely lag-free pass-through, so completely fine to use. I hope you know by saying that it works perfectly for the EasyCap 320 means that I'm going to buy it and show how it doesn't work perfectly at all. My favorite thing is when people buy, like, say that budget things work perfectly and then finding out that there's X, Y, or Z, like, majorly wrong with it that they just don't care that much about. I did find it. I obviously can't show it right now because I can only talk about Amazon stuff here, but I will check it out at some point soon. It looks very similar to another capture card I got sent for review, so that is quite interesting, I shall say. Thank you for the follow, CGV0404040404. But yeah, that's about all I have here. I was just going to do Q&A for the rest of this so we can answer your questions about capture cards. I just wanted to dive into and kind of provide a little refresh on these little cant links because they're goofy, but they're also really, really cheap. And I think they're a wonderful option for the majority of people out there that are just doing work from home or, you know, streaming passively on Facebook or doing Zoom meetings or whatever. Like, you don't need to go buy a Camlink Pro or a Magewell or Blackmagic or something like that. Okay, apparently the EasyCap 320 on AliExpress cannot deliver to US. What the hell? Cap 320. Oh, that one can. Okay. AliExpress is weird. Feeling like I should buy this, although I have no need for it. So, my favorite thing about these is, especially if you get the ones like I have that are like $10. If you think you might have a use for it or you just want to play around with it, this is the cheapest investment you could possibly make into experimenting with streaming. This is the absolute easiest, lowest barrier to entry. This plus an HDMI cable, of course, to taking a camera that you already have or a camera that you were buying already and connecting it and experimenting with it, seeing if you want to go live on YouTube or Facebook or just have a better improved Zoom call. And if you don't like it, you spent $10 and you lost really nothing at all. And I think this opens the doors for a lot of people because I've spent so long in my career with people being really upset with how expensive capture cards are. And admittedly, if you're doing this as a like job, then you should pay more for the higher quality card. But for just testing the waters and figuring out whether you want to do it at all, everyone can afford this at this point if you already have a camera to use for it, which is pretty cool. Someone mentioned they used capture or the Cantlink for debugging someone's TV console, and then someone else is saying they use it for debugging embedded computers in the job. Yeah, it's perfect for that kind of stuff as well. Like, there's so many uses for this where you just buy like a handful and hook them up in different places that you don't need a ton of quality. Connecting a Raspberry Pi to set up on your computer where you don't have an easy way to run it to a monitor or something like that. What about the Fosco Max game capture card? $35 on Amazon. Let me look it up. Fosco Max game capture card. This one? Yep, I reviewed this exact one, just with a different name. Back on my channel. Hang on. I just closed the playlist. Where's the playlist? Yeah, so that is the exact same capture card as this one right here. That I reviewed. Where's the... Yeah. Well, this is the exact same capture card that I reviewed back late last year. Same idea. Where did it go? I have too many tabs. I guess I don't need most of these anymore. Same idea. So it's not real USB 3.0 at all. Only the pins for USB 2.0 are connected. So they could potentially use a USB 3.0 connector and just didn't connect everything, but they are only using the pins to connect USB 2.0. So it's still MJPEG. It will pass through 4K 60, but it will only capture 1080p 60. And this one will do actual 60 FPS, or at least closer to it. I don't want to say full, like, locked 60 FPS, but it'll at least do closer to 60 FPS in my testing. But it's still not perfect, but it is a better option of them. Was there a summary for which one is best for the price? If you are looking to just do camera capture and just do a basic, just a basic webcam or something like that, the cheapest one you can get is going to perform the same as most of them. So getting one like this for like $9 or something is 100% the way to go, because you're going to get effectively the same results as every other one of these cheap ones on the market. If you're looking to do smoother gameplay or higher res stuff or what have you, I think my Amazon feed just like crashed. That was weird. If you are looking to do smoother gameplay or something like this Fosco Max is probably a better buy. And in fact, I'll add it to my Amazon queue here, just so we can show it. But you're still not getting amazing results. But it depends on what your priorities are. Because if you're just doing a camera, you don't need the HDMI pass-through. You don't need the 4K stuff, because that scaling isn't going to be great. Someone mentioned in the chat that it's choppy at 4K. I ran into that as well with the other version of it that I reviewed. In my review here, like, it got choppier at 4K. The scaling still isn't super great, and it's not real USB 3.0. So I would generally recommend getting the cheapest one you want if you're just doing Zoom calls, teaching, face cam stuff. If you're doing gameplay, you could try one of these, but honestly, I'd recommend stepping it up to the closer to the $100 range. And I will post this playlist link again in chat, because there are a couple better options closer to that $100 price point. If I get latency in 4K on card or display, is it because the HDMI cable's bandwidth is not being able to fully handle it? No. Unlike analog with digital connections like HDMI, if your cable isn't able to handle it, it's just not going to handle it. Like, it won't add latency, it just won't be able to do it. So if you're getting latency, it's on the processing end on one or the other of whatever you're connecting. Ooh, yes. So someone's mentioning the 5 FPS thing. That is because you have it set to YUI2 or something. You need to set it to MJPEG. That means it's in the wrong color mode, because it can't send uncompressed video over USB 2.0. So you have to set it to compressed MJPEG for it to be able to send 30 or 60 FPS. All right, that about wraps up today's stream, everyone. Thank you for hanging out with us in today's episode of AFK Chat. I will have some formal reviews of some good options worth buying if you want a little bit of a higher end capture card that is still cheap. I have a couple videos on that coming very soon that I'm stoked to share. Got a request to touch on MJPEG versus other modes real quick. So without text or graphics or anything to show off, this is only going to make a little bit of sense. But if you are wondering what, when I talk about MJPEG or YUI2, XRGB, UIVY, these are all basically the encoding of the video stream that a capture card outputs. Now, most capture cards, some do. Most capture cards are not encoding your video like you would in OBS or XSplit or something for your stream in H.264. That is what you typically think of for video compression or encoding. Your capture card, there are some that do that. You don't really want them. Your capture card isn't doing that, but it is encoding your feed from the raw ones and zeros it receives over HDMI into a video feed that your computer can recognize. And for that, there are different modes for it. MJPEG is effectively JPEG compression, like you would take on a camera. So it has all of the same artifacting and things like that, and your computer then has to decode that. Now, it's fairly quick compared to H.264 to decode, but the quality still isn't great most of the time. You still get blocking artifacts and pixelization, and quite a bit higher latency when you're using MJPEG. However, at HD resolutions, MJPEG is all that is accepted, or able to be streamed over USB 2.0 due to bandwidth. Meanwhile, on USB 3.0, you get other modes like UIVY and YUI2, which are uncompressed and have 422 chroma subsampling. Chroma subsampling is effectively color compression. You can compress colors without compressing the resolution. That's a whole rabbit hole we can go down a different time. I've explained in other videos. You also have capture cards that output NV12, which is 420 chroma subsampling, which is a little bit more compressed, uses less bandwidth, but is still uncompressed in terms of going to be low latency and not have pixelization or anything. So you want a capture card, if you want the highest quality, that can do NV12, YUY2, UIVY, or XRGB, because all of these are uncompressed in terms of video compression and encoding. They just don't have full color resolution. It's going to be rare for you to find a capture card with XRGB, which is 444 chroma subsampling, and frankly, for most streaming purposes, you 100% don't need it at all. May I ask, I got a cheap capture card and the picture is a bit bad. It has quite a bit of chroma noise. Is this a camera problem or a capture card problem? Could be a bad cable. I have had bad cables. If you're talking about just like random blue or red or green specks all over the screen, to me, it could be a bad cable, or it could be a bad capture card. But to me, I have had that happen a lot with HDMI cables that have like a short in them or aren't working properly. If you're getting that with multiple cables, then it's just a bad capture card, or potentially the port on the camera is damaged. But it's obviously cheaper to test out swapping the capture card and the HDMI cables first. All right, thanks so much, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your week. We got some awesome content coming up, as always. I'll see you next time after we talk about backing track. Wait, wrong scene.
Do you need stream-safe music for your streams and videos, but want something a little heavier? My awesome community sought to solve that and made Backing Track. Hard rock and heavy metal music, safe for your content and free to use. No subscriptions. Head over to backingtrack.gg to stream it or join our Discord for free downloads. Swoop.